This is my Barbie scale Parisian living room from my previous video. Right now, it only has the basic layout, so today I'm going to keep refining this room until it feels more complete. I want it to feel richer, more intentional, and more lived in. But there's one constraint. I'm not changing the foundation of the room. The windows, fireplace, room structure, and main furniture all stay exactly the same. So let's see how much I can transform this room just by refining what already exists. I'll also share the thinking behind every change I make, along with all the little experiments and a few of the builds along the way. You'll probably notice the lighting changing a little. That's because I worked on this room whenever I had time, sometimes during the day, sometimes at night. Right now, everything in the room feels calm and gentle, maybe a bit too calm. Not a bad thing, but it felt like it needed more contrast to feel interesting. I decided to start with the artwork. I had a feeling it was setting the mood for the whole room, so I wanted to try something much more expressive. Wow, this changes the room way more than I expected. The room has very few objects, so each one stands out a lot. This was a good idea, but it's too dynamic. Let's dial it down. Alright, time for my next abstract masterpiece. The first one was also my painting. I was aiming for a brown cloud for this one, but do you see what I see? It's kind of funny. It needs more empty space. Again, painting a brown cloud, just a smaller one this time. This one's funny too. Let's pretend this is intentional. There we go. I'll keep this one. After changing that one piece, the whole mood of the room shifted. It suddenly felt much more grounded and artistic. I didn't expect that, but I liked it enough to keep going in that direction. But once the artwork changed, even the handful of objects I had styled suddenly felt out of place, so I adjusted the coffee table first to match the new direction. Then I added a chess piece on the mantle instead of the art book. Next, I made a floor lamp. Some of you suggested this. I fixed a thin wire into a small metal bearing using hot glue. Then I covered the top with reflective paper and added lampshade reusing an old craft project. It blends into the room really naturally, but it still makes a difference. The space just feels lighter and more alive. I didn't expect much from it, but I like it a lot. Now I wanted to add something to the left wall, a low display shelf. This was also a common suggestion. I made a shelf using foam board and gesso, but the first version with a whitewashed wood finish immediately made the room feel too rustic. It also felt too bulky for the space. So I rebuilt it, thinner and lower. This version is also just painted foam board. I used burnt umber this time. This version worked much better. The wall finally didn't feel empty anymore. But after making the shelf thinner and seeing the lightweight floor lamp in the room, I realized something. This room could easily start to feel crowded. So instead of adding more furniture, I started looking for other ways to solve this. Before moving on, I quickly added a few small objects to the shelf. So I wanted to see how I could make the room feel less cramped, but remember the challenge from the beginning? I'm not changing the core layout. I could just make the room bigger or remove the sofa, but that would be cheating. So I looked at the room more carefully and realized something. Most of the attention was staying in the center while the edges felt a bit empty. Maybe that's what was making the room feel a little crowded, so I tried adding taller pieces around the room to spread the attention out. First, a tall mirror on the right. I tried a few positions, but I couldn't really make it work in the room. Next, wooden dowels. Close. I made a more organic branch by joining two pieces together. Oh, that works. It adds height and gently pulls the eye upward. Then, instead of adding more to the edges, I shifted focus away from the center by moving the artwork to the left and trying a mirror above the fireplace. The center immediately felt less heavy. The mirror still didn't feel right, but I was getting closer, so I simplified the center even more. I removed the mirror, restyled the fireplace, and adjusted the small objects. Finally, I moved the lamp behind the sofa. Looking at the before and after, the room now felt much more balanced. Let me quickly add a few things at the edge first. So now we're not done refining the room yet, but I wanted to see if the room actually felt like it belonged to my dolls, so I brought in my favorite, Barbie. First, I tried her in a Korean traditional outfit. And somehow, she gave me this diplomatic vacation in Paris vibe. I don't know why, but the mix of warm wood, brass accents, organic shapes, and the low shelf somehow gave the room a subtle Korean-inspired feeling. Next, I tried a fashion model's room concept. I started adding a few small accessories around the space, water on the shelf, sunblock on the coffee table, and she's actually a bit of a party girl, so I placed some wine bottles next to the fireplace. I really love the scene. So now I knew the room worked with my dolls, but something still felt a little too decorated. My first instinct was to add another floor lamp. I show a more detailed crafting process for this lamp. I started by running the lamp wires through a brass tube. Then I cut a paper strip and wrapped it around the upper part of the tube like this. Next, I connected the wires to the battery box. Yeah, I finally got a soldering kit. I was pretty happy with the purchase, except the soldering wire that came with it had a bit too much lead in it. It worked. For the base, I used foam board and a small metal bearing. Then I built the lampshade frame using paper and thin wire. After that, I wrapped it with white cotton. I wasn't happy with the shade, but I still tried it in the room anyway. The lamp added some warmth to the room, but somehow it looked like it belonged in a completely different room. And second, the sofa and floor lamp combination just felt a bit too generic. At that point, I started noticing a few areas in the room that felt a bit too generic, like things that felt a little too familiar, so I started removing and adjusting a few of those elements. The first one to go was this plant. I also changed the coffee table, its styling, angle, and position. Then I came back to the lamp. I replaced a cotton shade with a brass one and placed it closer to the center. Instead of feeling like a separate object, it finally started to feel like part of the room. Finally, I moved the gray stool to the center to connect the conversation area. Let's see the result. To me, it finally feels like a real home, instead of a decorated dollhouse. The funny thing is, throughout this whole process, none of the changes felt particularly dramatic. But then I looked at them side by side and I was honestly surprised. I never rebuilt the room, I just kept making small improvements and somehow that changed everything. So how much can I improve my Barbie room without rebuilding it? Quite a lot, I think. Although knowing me, this room probably isn't finished yet. So yeah, that was me overthinking my Barbie room. Let me know in the comments what you think or what I should try next. Thank you for watching!